everybody, it's Georgia Weedman, author of Penetration Testing, a hands-on introduction to hacking, and your instructor for this accompanying lab. So this time we're going to take a look at exploiting a third-party web application with Metasploit. So let's pop on over to our target. And again, your IP address will be different than mine. We're .2 and our target will be .3. So let's do nmap, SV, the usual. Again, if it's getting boring, that means you're learning it well, so be happy. Because that was, after all, the goal. My guess is it's going to be on port 80 since this is about web applications. Sure enough, we've got a MySQL, we've got an Apache, we can start looking for vulnerabilities for, those particular versions. But let's go ahead and actually see what's running on that web server. And it does have a login page. We don't know the login. We can look for, defaults or things like that. But what we do see down here, PHP collab version, it's real small, but you'll have it in front of you as well, version 2.5.1. So much like we do when we see a version on the nmap output, we can do the same thing with web applications. So, I went ahead and Googled over here, PHP collab exploit, vulnerability, security, things like that often will pull up, vulnerabilities. It does look like this version does have arbitrary file upload. That's great. We can upload files. Yay. So, if we can upload files of our choosing and then run them on the web server, that's great. We will see that several times throughout the course. In fact, it's a pretty common issue and a very nice one to find. But anyway, so let's come back here. I do want to show you this. So we are in the Metasploit section, so obviously we're going to use Metasploit. But I want to show you a tool that is in Kali. It's called Searchsploit. So that actually hooks up to the exploit database, which it does have Metasploit modules, but also it has publicly available exploits. Not everything is going to be in Metasploit, though they do a pretty good job. I will give them that. They do a good job of getting things in there fast, getting things that can hit like all the vulnerable targets and whatnot. But there are exploits that are, publicly available on the internet. I do warn you, while Metasploit is very well vetted by, Rapid7 and in the community, probably the worst thing that's going to happen is something's not going to work. Things on the internet, they don't have the same oversight, so you may run into things. There have been instances of, for instance, things that call themselves an exploit but actually attack the Pentester machines. You can actually wipe out your own machine this way or rootkit yourself. And certainly things that, will bring boxes down. They just have one payload and it's not the one that you need. They're for the wrong target, Windows 2012 and Windows 7 were both vulnerable to something. You have 2012 and it's only got Windows 7 payload on it, or even the exploit itself. We'll get into that sort of stuff when we start actually writing our own exploits. But anyway, there may be instances where there's not a Metasploit module, and it's certainly, worth knowing that there are other options out there. But I encourage you to very thoroughly read through the code as best you can before you ever, this is a lab, do what you want. But before, in an actual production environment, you actually throw something off that is just off the internet that you didn't write and, a tool like Metasploit didn't write. Anyway, so we can do a search exploit for PHP collab. All this does is search through the exploit database. And, it has a few, most things generally do. So it looks like we've got arbitrary file upload and .rb, that's Ruby. Chances are that's Metasploit. It looks like it says in the name it's Metasploit. So it looks like there is a Metasploit module for this. Exploits PHP. And so let's go ahead and pull up our MSF console. And we can also do a search in here. It will search off strings. So if we search for PHP collab, it does come up with exploit Unix web apps PHP collab upload exec. That sounds like that, which is what we found. So upload and execute, I'm all for it. Unauthenticated, even better. We don't have to have usernames and passwords. Alright, so we want to use that module. And I just lost my IP address. Every time I copy paste, I lose my IP address. IP adder. Though I may not need it. I should just be able to let it well, I need the .3. Anyway, alright, show options. Proxies, we don't need that. Our hosts, we need to tell it where to go. Our port 80 is correct. SSL is false. We don't actually have SSL on this. It even complains about it. And URI target PHP collab. So if we look here, it looks like this isn't actually installed at the location PHP collab. It looks like it's just installed at root. You know, when I went to just the root, it took me to PHP collab, so I should be able to take that off. And it's not on a virtual host. Targeting is automatic, so we want to set our hosts to .3. Let's set target URI just to root. If we do a show payloads on this guy, I imagine we're going to see PHP payloads. So since this is a PHP app and it's upload and execute, it's going to want to upload and execute something that is PHP. So the web server knows that language and is thus able to execute it. Metasploit's smart that way and shows us the PHP payloads. Again, you can, in most cases, just let this stuff default, but since we're learning, I will do, I will set a payload. So set payload, I'll do PHP interpreter, reverse TCP, show our options now, and we, in addition to the options we already set, we also have payload options, lhost, so that's where to call back to, and lport. So we do need to set lhost to not the target, so we don't need .3. We need to set it to us. We want the payload to call back to our listener in Metasploit on Kali, so we do need to have .2, our IP address of our Kali machine, and exploit. And we got our interpreter session. Pretty cool, huh? And, from there, there's a flag. It's probably in temp flag. You can, of course, do a find for it. But if we just cat out temp flag, there it is. All right, so, another example, you're not just looking at the underlying, software. If something's running on there like a web application, it has a version. We'll look at later in the course, looking at, custom web applications where we're looking for new vulnerabilities in web applications, but these, third-party web applications, commercial off-the-shelf stuff, open source stuff that you're going to potentially run into a lot of different places, wikis, timesheet software, what have you. They can be basically the same, really, in, as network pen tests. They have known vulnerabilities. This is a piece of software. It had some known vulnerabilities. There are exploits available for it. So, we didn't have to run around putting single quotes to try and find SQL injection or anything like that. We already knew because there was already a found vulnerability in this version and we could use it. So, again, we will look more at doing custom web application stuff. But a lot of the web application stuff you'll run into will probably be third-party stuff like this that is going to be used by multiple clients. So definitely worth checking out any versions of web servers running out there, as well as the software running on them and the applications. So that's all for this one, and I will see you next time.